Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Jo Best. I'm the Public Health Director for the Lincoln Trail District Health Department. We're a public health agency that has a district-wide coverage. So we have health departments in Hardin, LaRue, Marion, Meade, Nelson, and Washington counties. We have 100 employees that are spread across that 6-county jurisdiction, and we serve a total population of just over 226,000 individuals. Our mission is assuring their health and safety through prevention, promotion, and protection. We just completed our most recent community health assessment for the 2018-2021 timeframe, and we identified 3 top focus areas. They were obesity, access to care, and substance abuse. Within the substance abuse area, we have prioritized strengthening existing smoke-free ordinances within our communities that already have ordinances, but also expanding the cities and counties within our service area that have comprehensive smoke-free laws. Over the next year, you will see health department officials actively engaging in LaRue, Meade, Nelson, and Marion counties in passing local laws to protect those who live, work, and visit our area. We are very proud of our partnership with Ben Chandler and the folks at the Foundation for Healthy Kentucky in this endeavor. Thank you.
All right, I want to introduce our speaker. Our featured speaker today is Ben Chandler. Ben is the president and CEO of the Foundation for Healthy Kentucky, a nonprofit, nonpartisan foundation that works to make Kentuckians healthier. He is 8th generation Woodford Countian. He earned his bachelor's and law degree from the University of Kentucky. His state service included 1 term as the Kentucky State Auditor and 2 terms as the Attorney General. Ben received the Democratic nomination for governor in 2003 but did not prevail in the general election. But in February of 2004, he was elected to the United States House of Representatives and represented Kentucky in Congress until January of 2013. He then served as the executive director of the Kentucky Humanities Council before joining the Foundation for Healthy Kentucky in September 2016. Now let me welcome, and I hope someone who will run for office again, Ben Chandler.
Switch there, to the right.
Okay. Next. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that very nice introduction, Dave. It's a tremendous pleasure to be here. I have had the opportunity to be here on many occasions over the years in Marion County, and I don't mind telling you, it's one of my favorite places. Among other things, it's when I did run for governor in 2003, it was one of the, I think maybe the only county around here that I carried. Particularly when you lose an election and somebody votes for you, you have a great deal of appreciation for that. So thank you all. You heard Dave give my resume, and whenever I hear him say some of the things that I've done, it always it makes me think that you're getting a fellow who still doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up. I've got such a, or somebody can't keep a job, one of the two. In any event, I am very pleased to be here. Now, I'm a little put out with one of my dear friends, a fellow who some of you may know. He was a law school classmate of mine, Joe Mattingly. Joe and I go back a very long way and are very, very close, but Joe, I assumed Joe would be here today, but he texted me and said he had a meeting in Bowling Green this morning. And I don't think that's a sufficient excuse. So if you all see him, you tell him, shame on him. I expected him to come here and support me, and he's not here. In any event, I also want to tell Sarah Jo and all of the guys here at the health department, you all do such important work, and I don't think people realize how important it is. What the health departments in this state are trying to do, they're trying to begin to get policies enacted to make the healthy choice the easy choice for the people who live in their districts. And why is that important? Well, it's important for a whole number of reasons. But in this country, you may be interested to know, and some of you may already know, we spend twice as much per capita on health care as the rest of the world. Twice as much. And our outcomes rank number 37. Now, if being folks with the chamber, you ought to understand that that's not a real good outcome for that kind of expenditure. If you were making any product that you could think of, and you spent twice as much to produce that product and ended up with the 37th best product, how long would you be in business? Not very long. And why is that? Well, the reason is because we don't focus in this country on keeping people healthy in the first place. And that's what our health departments are now trying very seriously to focus on, keeping people healthy in the first place. What we've done essentially in this country is, and we're all guilty. I'm guilty. I had a Mountain Dew on the way down here. I mean, they're just, I shouldn't even admit that, should I? Anyway, we're all guilty of it on some level, but we are very, very unhealthy in this country, and we're particularly unhealthy here in Kentucky. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But it costs us. It costs us a very great deal. It costs us, of course, an enormous amount in expenditure for health care, because health care typically in this country kicks in once you've already got a chronic illness or some kind of an acute problem. And once you have that, of course, it costs so much more. That's one of the reasons why the costs are so much higher in this country than they are elsewhere. Other countries spend a lot of money investing in healthier populations. Now, as members of the chamber, you all ought to understand how important it is to also have a healthy workforce. It's extremely important, and you know what challenges we have here in Kentucky with having a healthy workforce. But if you don't have a healthy workforce, all sorts of problems occur, including a reduction in your productivity. The state chamber, who we've been dealing with a lot, who's been a partner on lots of our efforts, will tell you very, very quickly that it's hard to attract business to a place that's not healthy. What business would want to come into a community or a state where they can't find a healthy workforce? If their workforce is unhealthy, it's going to cost them in terms of productivity on the front end and in terms of healthcare costs on the back end. So they get hit twice. It makes it very difficult in the area of economic development to not have healthy citizens. All right, enough of that. I am the head of the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky. Have any of you all ever heard of that foundation? We got one, we got two, few of you, some of you. Well, anyway, not enough of you for me to not have to explain it to you. The foundation was created about 18 years ago, and it was endowed with $45 million from a settlement of a conversion, a health conversion, when Anthem Insurance Company merged with the Blue Cross Blue Shield, which was a nonprofit health insurance plan here in Kentucky. There are laws, charitable laws, on the books that say nonprofits have a certain charitable nature to them, and that has a value associated with it. And Anthem had to come up with $45 million. We got it put into a foundation. This foundation was created. It's now got endowed with a little over $55 million, and we've given out over $27 million over the life of the foundation so far. The foundation has typically behaved as a philanthropy, giving money out and principally. Now we are changing our focus. We're changing our focus to the area of advocacy. And we've always been interested in advocacy to some extent. But now we want to provide leadership in Kentucky on health issues. We want the foundation to be the leading voice on a statewide basis because we are a statewide foundation. We want it to be the leading voice on health matters from one end of the state to the other, on health policies, good, positive health policies for our people. We really haven't had a whole lot of that, to be frank about it, here in Kentucky. Our partners in this, our principal partners in my mind, are our 61 public health departments throughout Kentucky. They cover the entire state. There's 61 of them, and some of them provide clinical services, but a lot of them are moving into more of this policy area also. And we're hoping to really start ramping up. And Terry, in the legislature, you know, we're going to be working very hard in the legislature on good health policies. We're going to be working on the local level, and I'll be talking about that in just a minute. But we think it's very important, and we think it can make a tremendous difference. We also think that changing policies in the area of health is a whole lot more effective use of money than just simply giving grants out. Now, we'll still be giving grants, but most of them will be associated with our policy work. It'll be very targeted and aimed at changing policies for the benefit of the health of our people all over Kentucky. We're nonprofit and we're nonpartisan, which I want you to know tickles the hell out of me. I've been in partisan stuff for too long. It is a treat to be nonpartisan and actually be able to deal with people on all sides, particularly in an atmosphere where there isn't a whole lot of that. So we're enjoying that very, very much. What got me interested, and here's where we have awarded our grants through the years. What got me interested, particularly in getting involved in health policy, was when I realized what our numbers were in cancer. Do you all realize that we lead this nation in cancer? We have the highest incidence of cancer in this country. We have the highest mortality rate from cancer in this country. Now, I don't know how you all feel about it, but I find that to be utterly and totally unacceptable. I think that's something that we just have to do something about. We're duty bound to do something about that. Number 50. So we either, depending on how you look at it, we're last in cancer or we lead in cancer, but we've got the most cancer per capita of any state in the country. And this is the study which came out in January of last year that particularly got my attention. It's a Journal of the American Medical Association study, and it showed, you can see the colors from blue to dark red. Blue, this study showed that cancer mortality in this nation as a whole declined by 20% between 1980 and 2014. Declined by 20%. And you can see where you've got blues and greens, that's where you have the highest percentage of decline. You get over to the red, and you've got an increase in cancer mortality. Now, do you see where the dark red is? Now, isn't that shocking? Look at our state. I mean, we are right there. That's where cancer has increased, and it's increased dramatically here in Kentucky compared to the rest of the country. Now, if that doesn't get your attention, I don't have anything else to tell you that possibly can. Marion County, as you can see, Marion County has seen its cancer mortality go up rather than down. Now again, remember, the nation has seen a 20% decline. And yet cancer is going up here in Marion County. And as you can see, it's worse east of us. But it's still not good. It's still not good throughout Kentucky. This is really just kind of a similar map to the one I just showed you. But you could see Marion County had a 10% increase between 1980 and 2014 in cancer mortality. Why? Well, we think that the smoking rate has a great deal to do with it. Now, it doesn't have everything to do with it. We know that smoking doesn't cause all cancers, but it does cause about a third of them. Studies have shown that about 33% of the cancers are directly related to smoking. Now, that tells me that a third of our cancers are in fact preventable. That's what that tells me. And we, as you can see, we're next to last in smoking, meaning we've got the second highest percentage of smokers in the nation. We're usually number one. West Virginia just ticked above us this year. Last year we were number one in smoking. Next year we might be number one again. But we're just neck and neck with West Virginia for that title. And I would submit to you that our smoking rate and our cancer rate are tied. That is not a coincidence. Youth smoking, we're at 14.3%. That is some 70+% above the national average. So our young people are smoking at a tremendous rate as well. E-cigarettes, again, we're seeing a high rate. Now, you'll hear from people who talk about these vapor products, vaping and e-cigarettes, that they will help cut down on the use of tobacco. That may actually have some merit when it comes to people who are older and addicted to tobacco. May have some merit. But it doesn't have any merit with young people. This has proven to be a gateway for young people. And these vaping outfits, it's not accidental that they have flavors like cotton candy and bubble gum. They're full of nicotine. And I don't know if y'all knew this or not, but nicotine is very addictive. I think everybody knows that. Teen e-cig users are 30.7%. They're 30.7% of them are likely to smoke within 6 months, smoke tobacco, compared to 8.1% of people who don't use e-cigs. So it's clearly a gateway. Smoking in pregnancy, this is another thing that I think you all will be surprised at. 30% of the pregnant women here in this county smoke. Did you know that? Well, it's not good for them at all, and it's not good for the fetus. And I'm not going to go into all that, but the harm is dramatic. Lee County leads the state with a rate of 47.7%. And again, we are significantly above the national average. You know, we'd be tickled to death if we could just get to the national average. We'd be quite excited about that, in fact. Cost of smoking, annual health care expenditures, $1.92 billion, almost $2 billion we spend just to pay for the health care associated with the smoking habit here in Kentucky. And in Medicaid, $589 million goes towards smoking. So, you know, we could solve a lot of our financial difficulties if we could get this smoking rate down. That breaks out to an annual household tax burden. Every household in this state is paying about $1,200 every year to pay for our smoking habit in Kentucky. That's what that breaks out to. So don't tell me that we're not all in this, because we're all paying for it. Whether you smoke or not, you're shelling out on average $1,200 a year to pay for it. So this affects you. And the productivity, loss of productivity, it is estimated to be about $2.8 billion in Kentucky. Now, we actually, in case you all thought I was just the bearer of bad tidings, we actually have some good news related to this subject. There are a couple of things, unlike some of our other health problems that are much more difficult to deal with, problems like obesity, problems like diabetes, opioid, and other kinds of substance abuse problems. We don't know the answers to some of those problems, and what answers we do have are very difficult to get at and very expensive. In this particular case with smoking, though, and the cancer that it leads to, we actually have a couple of things that we know work, and the other thing that's great about it is it doesn't cost a thing to the average taxpayer. One of those things we worked on in the General Assembly, and we're going to see part of the fruition of it on July the 1st, which I think is Sunday. That's when the tobacco tax, cigarette tax, goes up 50 cents. Our foundation and our allies, including the health department here and other health departments around the state, work very hard to get the cigarette tax increased, because we know from the experience of other places throughout the world that if you bump up the cigarette tax, the use of cigarettes goes down. It just flat out does. There's absolutely no question about it. It works. People are price sensitive. Now, we wanted to get $1 or more. We tried very hard to get $1 or more. The legislature, in its wisdom, decided not to go where we wanted them to go. But they did increase it by 50 cents, which happens to be the largest increase in the cigarette tax in our state's history. So we take that as something of a victory. It was a compromise, but we think that it was a victory. Now, if we had gotten $1, at least $1, that price shock all at once would have caused, our studies showed us, over 50,000 Kentuckians to quit smoking if we had gotten that. We don't know what's going to happen with the 50 cents. We hope that still some people will quit smoking. But in any event, at least it provides some more revenue, and we think it will have a positive impact. The other thing that works, and of course, is, again, that's a user tax. If you don't smoke, you don't pay it. So it doesn't cost the regular taxpayer anything unless you smoke, unless you use the product. The other thing that doesn't cost, smoke-free laws. There are states and there are even countries in this world that have comprehensive smoke-free laws that cover the entire state or the entire country. We in Kentucky have smoke-free laws, comprehensive smoke-free laws in 5 counties out of the 120. We've got a number of cities around the state that have them, but only 5 out of our 120 counties have them. About 1/3 of our population is covered by smoke-free laws. But again, what we know about that is if you have smoke-free laws, it will cause your smoking rate to decline, and it will cause your cancer rate to decline. There really, in my judgment, is not a good argument against it, and it doesn't cost the taxpayers a thing to put it into place. Now, what that means, you may ask, what is a smoke-free law? Well, all it says is you cannot smoke in a public building where other citizens might be exposed to it, might be exposed to the secondhand smoke. We know secondhand smoke is bad for people. And the argument is, if I'm a non-smoker, I have just as much right to not have to breathe your smoke as you have to breathe it. So we think it's a reasonable thing to request people not to smoke in indoor places where the public is welcome. Now, that doesn't mean you can't smoke in your car. You can continue to smoke outdoors, and you can continue to smoke in your home. We're not telling people they can't smoke. We're just telling them they can't smoke in public buildings. That alone, though, causes a change in the mores. It causes a culture change in a community. There isn't any question about it. It does two things. It makes it more inconvenient for people to smoke, and it makes it less socially acceptable for people to smoke. And as a result, the smoking rate declines. And you don't have to take my word for it. There are plenty of studies out there, plenty of other jurisdictions that have seen this happen. It works. So, we have solutions at hand. They don't cost the taxpayer a thing. All they require is a little political will. And what we're trying to do, and one of the main reasons I'm here today, is to try to convince Marion County to do this, to pass an ordinance to take this county smoke-free. You'd be the 6th one in the state. We would love to see you do it, and we think it's good for it's very good for the community. From one end, from any way you look at it, it's good for the community. And I will tell you that the State Chamber of Commerce is very much in favor. They are one of our founding members of our Smoke-Free Coalition. And we have this coalition. Again, I told you we have 160 partners in the coalition. It's a statewide effort, and it's trying to do these two things. And smoke-free laws are one of them, and the State Chamber is very much for it because they understand. They understand the impact to business of this. Now, I would encourage the Marion Chamber of Commerce to join us, become one of our partners in this effort, and support the health department, the good work that the health department is doing to try to get these smoke-free laws passed. We know it'll make a difference, and the cancer rate, we got to do something about it, folks. We just have to. We have to. And this is a relatively easy thing we can do. Now, I understand about the tobacco culture. I understand that tobacco is grown here. I understand that it's grown in my home county, Woodford County. It's grown, in fact, in 1992, tobacco was grown in 119 out of our 120 counties. The only one that didn't grow it was Pike County. And at that time, we had about 275,000 acres of tobacco. Now, and we had 60,000 tobacco farms. Now we've got fewer than 4,500 tobacco farms, and we've got less than 75,000 acres in tobacco. So its economic importance is clearly declining on the positive side. We got to do something now about the economic damage that's caused to our folks. The economic damage and the just health damage that's caused. In any event, that's it. I encourage you, please, to help us. We're very serious about this, and we know it'll make a difference. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask? Any questions? Feel free. Yes, sir.
When you are talking to politicians, legislators, and whatnot, about a statewide smoking ban, what is, in your experience, the greater obstacle? Just a philosophical, well, I'm for freedom, or whatever, philosophical or special interest money?
Both. We're running into trouble with both. You've absolutely got the argument about independence and freedom. This idea that if I'm a smoker, I can smoke anywhere I want. Of course, the answer to that is I've got freedom as a non-smoker not to have to smell your smoke. You know, the old adage about freedom is that your freedom extends to the end of my nose. You have plenty of freedom until you impact my freedom, and then your freedom is curtailed. That's what you have to do in a civilized society. We try to counter that, but with some folks it's very hard to do. And the smokers tend to be louder, some of them. Now that being said, we have polled this subject very carefully, and 70% of the people in this state are in favor of a smoke-free law. 70%. And the other interesting thing about it is it cuts across party lines. The Republicans, the Independents, and the Democrats all feel that way at about the same rate. So it's not a partisan issue at all. As far as the financial and special interest issue, our foundation spent about $150,000 in the legislature this year to try to get that tax increased. And our biggest competitor was Altria, which is the tobacco company, the largest tobacco company probably in the world. And they spent close to $400,000 against us in the General Assembly. Now they also have some folks, convenience stores tend to not want to see this happen because a high percentage of their sales, I think, are in cigarettes. So they don't like to see cigarettes not jumped up too much. But we have certain groups that are against it. Now farmers, tobacco farmers, my family has grown tobacco up until about 3 years ago. We grew tobacco, I think, since before Kentucky even became a state on our farm, every year. And my grandfather, my mother's father, was one of the 3 men who actually developed the Burley grading system for the country. We've had long association with tobacco. And I can tell you this, the average price of a pack of cigarettes is $4.77 in Kentucky. How much of that do you think goes to the farmer? Anybody guess per pack? Got a guess of a quarter. 3 cents. Farmer gets 3 cents from a $4.77 pack of cigarettes. So this doesn't really affect the Kentucky farmer. A bump in the price of cigarettes really, I would submit to you, has no effect on the farmer in Kentucky. Anyway, those are some of the interests that we're up against. And we're up against smokers, frankly, because 25% of the population, a quarter of our adult population in Kentucky smokes. So that's a political force in and of itself. Anybody else? Yes, yes, Terry.
I'll just agree with Ben on what he says. Having been in the legislature when that heated debate came about 3 or 4 years ago, having heard both sides, the only thing I would add to that is the people working against it in this last legislative session, Altria, kind of play on the fact that tobacco sent me to school. Tobacco supported my family, and the fact that there's a lot of agricultural people in the legislature, and they're older agricultural people, and that argument tends to, I think, register with them pretty deeply. So just a thought. I ended up voting for it, by the way, when I was there. It wasn't an easy call, and so just to add to what Ben said.
Well, and I'll tell you, that's one reason why we make a point of letting folks know how many fewer families' educations are being paid for now. From 60,000 down to less than 4,500 statewide. I think my education was paid for by it. You know, I think that is a true statement, certainly in the past for a whole lot of families in Kentucky, but much less so now than it used to be. So we really think that and some of those folks can be much more vocal than some of the others. But that's one reason we're trying to create this coalition. We're trying to get people involved, is we need people on the side of smoke-free to be vocal. We need to present a real vocal effort on that side of it to counteract the other, and that's what we're attempting to do. Anybody else? Everybody in support? Yeah. now, I'd love to, seriously, whoever can deal with this, Dave or Greg or whoever's in charge, we need the chamber to be a partner of ours in this effort, the Marion County Chamber. So let us know if y'all are willing to do it. I appreciate it. Thank you all very much for having me. Always a treat to be in Lebanon.